Well, g'day everyone, and happy December. It's Monday, the 1st of December, and here we are on Club Grubbery, the program where meets West. And we've done the right thing by our guests who are both from Western Australia because we put them above us, John, because people from the West like to see themselves as above those over East. So it's great to have on two wonderful guests we've had on before. We've been on their programs as well. We have Robyn Jackson-Stegner from Courage is a Cure doing great work, Robyn. Some of the stuff you're putting out is just really, really good. And you just seem to be finding your groove. So we just love your work. And Barry Green from Community Radio in WA, Donnybrook Community Radio. Great to have you on, Barry.
Thanks, Hoodie. Pleasure to be here.
And Johnny, good to see your smiling face as always.
As always, mate, yes. And I knew you'd be wearing the black shirt tonight. That's why I put the white one on.
Oh, there you go. See, we're the black and white minstrels. But look, there's a fair bit going on. Before we get into a general discussion of what's going on over the West and how we can all work together and things like that, a bit going on with the FDA in the USA at the moment, John. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, pretty interesting stuff, Hoodie. Essentially, the chief medical officer there has sent an internal memo to all of the staff, essentially outlining that he's very concerned that the COVID vaccines given to children, especially, have caused deaths, and he names at least 10 that they're aware of in their documents, and he goes on to say that this the evidence is there basically to say, well, did we do the right thing? And he's suggesting they didn't.
He's also suggested that anyone who disagrees with him will be fired. Is that right?
Yeah, they were the words. So, so he's not leaving too much for the faint-hearted in there, is he? I think he's certainly gone in there knowing that these vaccines certainly didn't pass a risk-benefit analysis for children at least, and he wants to make sure that this doesn't happen again.
Yeah, it's interesting stuff. We're seeing a lot of information coming out, a lot more reason why the damn wall should be crumbling if only the mainstream media would pick up on some of this. Robyn, it's pretty clear that John and I cover mainly COVID issues. We have done from the beginning, and a lot of people are saying it's time to move on. It's all behind us now, and we're not of that ilk. We didn't start this to just leave it half finished. So win, lose or draw, where followers are concerned, it doesn't worry us. We just want to stay true to the message. What's your current theme of your current approach with Courage is the Cure at the moment? What themes are you really targeting, say, in the last couple of months?
Yeah, I have some reoccurring themes, particularly, of course, at the moment it's digital ID. Just today, I've started my series of Plan for the Ban, and it's not an exercise in making people fearful. It's about digital responsibility, and we always hear this term "govern me harder" and all these sorts of things. It is time that we take responsibility for ourselves and look at our own digital landscape. So I'm doing a whole series of short form videos about that. But of course, the World Health Organization, just over, I think, a week and a half ago, I spoke to James Roguski again in regards to the pandemic treaty, the PABS agreement, but more in particular, the American government putting contracts requirements in front of a number of African nations, saying to them that if you would like the US to continue funding your nations, you need to let us take hold of the pathogens with pandemic potential and not give them to the World Health Organization. And of course, anything to do with children, I try to spend time focusing on. And of course, at the moment, we have Roblox very high on my radar. This is one of the social media platforms that isn't under the social media ban. However, they are introducing facial recognition, and unless we talk to our children, unwittingly, children will take selfies, and their digital profile will continue to expand, not at any fault of their own. So very important that parents speak to their children. So really those three issues, and also DNA contamination. Hoodie, I've been watching and reporting and streaming on the council since October last year. Started from Port Hedland, so that's another big one.
Yeah, that's been huge. And Adrian McRae's still, he's still digging deep. He's still researching. He's still flying around the world, interviewing people, talking with people about what's going on. And God bless him for the work that he's done there. Barry Green, talking about the digital ID. I mean, we want to say clearly, John and I have discussed this as well. We're urging everybody watching this program to start de-Facebooking. In other words, get used to a life without Facebook, because if we disappear, and it's highly likely that we will, then go and look for us on Rumble, make a note of our websites, because we're not going to play the Facebook game. We're not going to play that biometric data game at all. And so if a lot of people drop off because of that, then just at least make a note where to find us all. I'm talking about Barry and Robyn and John and I, because we're not going anywhere. We're still going to be here, and this is all the more reason why we're going to keep doing it. But we're going to stress this every time we come on air. Get used to life without Facebook and YouTube and all the others. Go to Rumble, go to BitChute, go to Telegram. You'll find us there, and we'll make sure you get plenty of links. Barry, how are you proposing to deal with this social media ban should it start rolling out? Because I've got a feeling it may stumble before we get there.
Yeah, I think it might end up going the way of the WA Indigenous Heritage Act. But anyway, our tourist radio, because I've got sort of two entities. Western Tourist Radio is my private company. I broadcast as a volunteer broadcaster with Donnybrook Baling Up Community Radio. And that's available online via the Community Radio Plus app. So you can stream that, DBCR, if you get the app. And the DBCR website's dbcr.com.au. You can go there. I guess from the Tourist Radio website, I've got a whole page for what I call independent media, where I link to all the different independent medias just because I can. So that's just a basic website that looks like it was created by a radio tech and an organic farmer 25 years ago, which it was, but it's still there, and it's sort of, I sort of see it's a link. So it's I use the term regenerative media as a play on regenerative agriculture, which is all about developing diverse self-organizing ecosystems. And as you say, Hoodie, sharing content by whatever means, whether it's in emails or telling the bloke across the garden fence, that's how we get around the gatekeepers. So I think if we lose Facebook, so be it. But I don't think Facebook would like that. So I think they'll find a way to come back. And as far as the under 16 thing goes, I did a thing with Charles Kovets the other day, and he said, you'd never let your kids out on the street at night. Parents have got to take responsibility for their kids, not give them a free smartphone, and you need to supervise their online activity. That's what parents are supposed to do. And as far as all the data management, if they think they're going to do this, the data centers that run these things are humongous energy consumers. So it's completely at odds with any sort of zero carbon, because the energy it takes to drive these all this AI is humongous. So at the end of the day, good old fashioned radio will be there even if the internet's down. And if locally, you can listen to your local community station, and if the internet's still working, you can listen to the streams and from all the community stations across Australia. And of course, the community stations operate under the Community Radio Code of Practice. And the codes include a definition of misinformation and disinformation, but they do say broadcast news and journalistic content must provide access to perspectives not adequately represented by other broadcast sectors. So I consider, in talking to people like yourself, and I'm representing the interests of people who've lost their jobs and their livelihoods and have been injured, those who chose not to participate in Greg Hunt's vaccine trial and lost their jobs and businesses. So we're representing that group that aren't being represented in other medias.
Yeah, you make some good points there, Barry. And people who might say community radio, I mean, what's the point? Isn't that gone? I've got to tell people that if they go to your website and look at some of the interviews you've done, it's amazing the work that you've done on community radio and how much that's reaching out to people. You're involved in so many ways. But Robbie, there's a lot of questions that we need to ask you about the topics that you raised that you're hot on at the moment. But before we get into that, how are you going to manage any social media bans? What's your plan?
Well, I have made my own list of non-negotiables. As with the old Britney Spears during the COVID war, we all had to draw a line in the sand somewhere. Where that line was differed for everybody, and just like social media, your digital landscape looks different for every person, every family. So when social media platforms or Google or any other app or the government for that matter are asking or potentially going to ask for my particulars, namely my biometric data, that is definitely a line I am not going to cross. So, I do have my channels all across different social media platforms, and if that happens, I'm quite happy to walk away from those platforms. A lot of people I can see in the comments will say, well, look at AI surveillance in the streets, in Woolworths, in Coles, you're already being monitored. You've already given information to Facebook and X and so on and so forth to have an account, which is absolutely true. But it doesn't mean that we have to continue to offer up our digital data whenever the government or big tech asks us for it. So for myself, yeah, I'm quite happy to walk away when certain particulars are asked of me. I'm not willing to divulge all of my information to big tech or the government for that matter either. I mean, even things like apps, a lot of people have apps on their phones to do their banking, to recharge their mobile phone, government apps, so on and so forth. I think it's really important for people to really think about it if you want to even install further apps. I mean, we don't know as part of this age assurance technology whether or not, there'll be a problem created where people have to verify their age. So potentially the government might create an app where, we install that on our phone, and then it's as easy as, having that on your phone, and then any other business or big tech platform that wants your information, it's all linked up, so on and so forth. People need to decide, do I want to install any more apps on my phone? You can stop, even if you already have, MyGov on your phone, or you already have your banking app. It doesn't mean to say you have to continue to divulge all your digital information to further installing apps. So, I'm sticking to my list of non-negotiables, and especially my biometric data. That is mine, and I'm not willing to comply.
Good on you. Good on you. And because there'll be a lot of people, Johnny, we talked about today. I was talking to Dan McDonald from the AFA. He's doing a lot of work on this sort of stuff, a lot of research on how to manage it. It's going to be very hard for people who are on a pension, who are going to be forced to do this kind of thing. And it's a bit rich for anybody to expect people to stand on a hill when they have effectively at an elderly age will cut off their supply of finance to be able to feed themselves. So I think it's really important that people do what Robyn said, and that is to draw your own line in the sand. But you've got to look at how will my life look in 2 years' time if I take this action regards, for example, a pension, and I lose it, because a lot of people out there living on the poverty line already with the pension they get. So, we all have to examine this and see how it unfolds. And hopefully there'll be enough resistance to turn it around. Johnny, some questions.
Yeah, I think, Hoodie, this will end up being like the misinformation bill. I think the goalposts are going to move half a dozen times before we see where they're really at on this. I mean, because I think the government has really underestimated at the moment just how much pushback there is going to be in relation to this. It is going to, once they start doing some polling on it, they will realise, Barry, won't they? That this isn't a winning policy.
I think you're right. And again with community radio, that I guess I'm digressing, but in a previous life I was a tech and commercial television. GWN Television was the only regional broadcaster in Western Australia, and it was a great West Australian company. But what we've seen of recent times is the media, especially in the regions, radio, print, and TV, have been bought by the corporations and shut down, which makes community radio and tourist radio is the last voice of community and small business. And I think one of the things I saw you blokes early in a piece, Rowan Dean talking about government by focus groups, and where they give people a pizza and a beer and they tell them what they want to hear. But I think once they start hearing about what people think about this idea, and you look at the older people, and that includes me these days, but I struggle to get the damn phone to do what I want it to do. So, I think the people that most need it are going to be completely disenfranchised by this thing, which isn't going to be good for ratings of parliamentarians.
Yeah, exactly, Barry. I think there's no way in the world that a pensioner is going to be sitting at home doing cartwheels about having to do this. I mean, they find it difficult enough having to go down to Service New South Wales or whatever the jurisdiction is in your state and having to deal with Centrelink or whoever to justify even getting their pension. They've got to go down and tell them how their assets have changed in the last 12 months, for instance. So, I mean, if there's these added layers of stuff coming in, Robyn, there's just no way in the world that these elderly in particular are going to be happy for that. And let's face it. I mean, a lot of the people that will really balk at this stuff are going to be Labor voters.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to listen to young people as well, considering this is being pushed and wrapped in a nice red ribbon, supposedly to protect our children from harmful content. I mean, just watching people like Max Freedom, another wonderful independent content creator here in Western Australia, go out on the streets, vox popping, talking to the youth. They see through it. They see the control, and the amount of young people I've seen that have said will be voting in a couple of years. This really tells me that maybe not so much that young people are keeping an eye on politics, but they do recognise that they will have the power of their vote in a few years. So I think that's something the government is definitely underestimating for the future. And the elderly, just to kind of pivot a little bit, we do have more than likely at the start of 2026 the cash acceptance mandate beginning in Australia, where cash will be mandated. That sounds fantastic, but the exemptions and why they're doing it is because they say that people in rural areas and the elderly who usually deal with cash need to feel comfortable that they're still able to conduct their business with cash, so they're protecting people's way of life. But the astounding thing about this, or maybe not so astounding, is the exemptions. And the exemptions consist of small to medium businesses not having to accept your cash. They're not under the mandate. So unfortunately, 98% of business in Australia is small business. So that's quite astounding when you think about it, which is just another one of those nudging techniques to corral us towards that electrified digital paddock that we're all being corralled towards. So, every which way we look, and I do sympathise a lot with, our older Australians. Because every which way we look, it's becoming more and more difficult to just do things how we've always done them, despite whether or not the government thinks it's so difficult to keep your documents, on your shelf like you've always done, all these sorts of things, and trying to make your life easier. Every which way we look, it's a nudging operation. I do really sympathise, particularly with our elderly in Australia.
Yeah, look, that's always been the case. I mean, I live in a very rural area, and there are lots of farmers who have roadside stalls, for example, where they sell produce and all that sort of stuff. And there's no mobile reception out here anyway. We're flat out getting an internet signal sometimes. How are people going to cope with that? It's scaring a lot of people. But the one thing about this is we said years ago that COVID woke up a certain cohort of people. And those who slept through COVID, some of those will wake up when digital ID comes in, when central bank digital currency comes in, when other forms of draconian measures are brought in. So we're going to see an increasing number of people joining the ranks of the disaffected in our country, because we have governments, state and federal, who cannot read the room to save themselves. They cannot read the mood of the people. The photo behind John is a clear example of that. That was the biggest crowd ever assembled in protest in Australian history. And they were like Marie Antoinette, let them eat cake. So where I'm wondering you two might be at with where we go with this media ban, should it eventuate. How important is it for us, though, who are seeking truth and mining for truth? How important is it for us to be able to keep broadcasting that to people who need to hear it? Because there is a fine line, isn't there? It's all right to draw a line in the sand, but we also have to remember that we are all getting some great interviews. There are a lot of people who are now starting to trust us all as independent media from all over the world who are talking. I mean, we did an interview with Aaron Siri a couple of weeks ago that was incredible. He said, you can have me for 45 minutes, and it was an hour 48. And we're going to have him back on. We're going to be talking to Detective Helen Gruis from Ontario Police, who's about to uncover some horrific things that have happened with infant mortality. These are things that people need to hear. So we've really got to balance this. Or do we just say, look, if we get shut down, we get shut down, we're out of here, goodbye, that's all she wrote. What are your thoughts? Start with you, Robyn.
Look, that could possibly happen. It could possibly happen. And just like during the COVID war, which was a huge exercise in not only the powers that be sifting the compliant from the non-compliant, there's the agenda of, and you started off the show talking about these children that have been identified as victims of these spicy needles, and that whole agenda. I can't help but feel that this push towards online censorship and nudging us towards digital ID is another exercise in further pushing the fringe dwellers, as we often get called by people in higher places, pushing those people further. And I think it's just another way for the government to see who will comply and who won't comply. So it could happen that for me, for Courage is the Cure, it all becomes too much, and I end up with no way to actually get any information out to people, let alone source information. Let's not forget, I am a researcher as well, and I do rely on the internet to do my research. So that I foresee could become a huge problem. I'm building my network so that I have direct contact with people, particularly in the Five Eye Nations, to be able to maintain that connection, so I can still give and receive information without relying on social media platforms necessarily. But the other one I'd like to point out, along with community radio, the other wonderful weapon that we still do have, of course, is print media. So
Yeah.
I have to spruik the Light newspaper. This is issue 20, and I think ultimately the Light will see another surge in not subscriptions, orders and distribution, because this, of course, is a tactile information product, which people can order and distribute themselves amongst people. So I think there might be a kind of resurgence in old media, as Barry mentioned, radio and newspaper. So I think we can only plan for what we can plan for. There's a complete lack of detail. Let's not forget that, from our Minister for Communications and the E-Commissioner, and also the big tech platforms. Complete lack of detail. So we can just plan for what we can plan for, and keep using the tools that we have.
Keep it going. Yeah, exactly. Barry, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think we're in a situation of government by KPI, but they keep KPing the wrong eye. And the Light Australia, I love it. And Western Tourist Radio's gone mad in the next edition, which is a QR code links to the independent media page on the Tourist Radio website. But you talked about the roadside stalls, Hoodie. With all the technology in the world, doesn't feed you. At the end of the day, all that really matters is decent food, grown the way God or evolution intended it, to provide food that's nutritious and is recognised by the human biome as food. Most of this food-like material that the corporations are selling is making people sick. And somebody who's a great inspiration to me is Joel Salatin, who's involved in the Maha movement in America. He's a regen ag farmer who's been in Western Australia. I've met him. He was brought here, I'm pretty sure, by the Southwest Development Commission early 2000s or 2020s. He now does a podcast called Beyond Labels with Dr. Sina McCulloch. And Sina interviewed me in 2018 in a little piece that she called An Aussie's Take on Food Propaganda, which is sort of my take on what's happened to advertising. And, it's from my lived experience, having been involved in commercial television. And again, coming back to the community radio, which I love. And I think the thing about community radio, all these conversations we've had, they're online for the record. It means radio's old technology, but posting the same content online and podcasts and on the Radio WA podcast, it's there for the record. And, community radio, we have to record everything for 6 weeks in case anybody pings us for anything. And, we haven't had any issues there. But, we're putting stuff up because we want people. It's the opposite to the commercial media trying to control the narrative. You and I and all of us in the independent media are putting content out, and we want people to nick it, to share it. It's the absolute opposite of copyright. So it's what I call, or Peter Kenyon from the Bank of Ideas refers to as copyleft. And it's the copyright and patents that have, in agriculture, that, the research in agriculture has all been done by corporations to sell stuff to farmers. But what's exciting in the regen ag movement at the moment is that the internet's providing this mechanism for independent scientists to work with innovative farmers and get a better outcome with less input. And so then, we've got to get people back into regional Australia. I grew up in Donnybrook in the 60s. The talk was all get big or get out, which I now come to see as this part of the World Economic Forum idea to depopulate the regions and have everybody living in filing cabinets in the city where they can be controlled. But Aboriginal people say country needs people, and they're right. And we've got to get people back into the regions. And regenerative agriculture is about getting animals back into the agricultural system, because this NPK farming with bigger machines and that is all well and good. But regenerative agriculture is about using animals that's part of the biology, and it's the big ruminant animals that created the deep soils of the plains of Africa and America, and Regen Ag is simulating that, producing quality protein that is recognised by the human biome, and it's all about getting the soil biology working. And that within the health movement, there's a realisation that human health comes from the human biome. And I like to misquote Bill Clinton's, it's all about the economy, stupid, and certainly the economy is important. But with the new scientific understanding of the biology in the soil and the human guts, I like to think it's all about the biology, stupid. And that's what's the game changer, because we have the science to understand the biology now. And that science isn't owned by a handful of corporations, it's a community asset. So, all this online stuff, it's all but bells and whistles. But at the end of the day, nutritious food grown on healthy soils with passionate family farmers, with the diversity of family farmers, rather than a handful of corporates, which they don't give a toss about local communities, and they're producing some pretty poor food like material.
Well,
I find it pretty ironic. Sorry to interrupt. I did a show last week about Tasmania, about the roadside food in Tasmania, fresh produce grown locally on family farms, just like you're talking about, Barry. And the government of Tasmania is introducing new legislation. These family farms have to jump through hoops to continue selling their produce on the roadside. And, they say it's about health and, talking about listeria and all these sorts of things. You're going to kill grandma again.
It's always about health.
Well, and they say, well, actually, we're just doing this so that Tasmania catches up with the rest of Australia. Tasmania's behind, and so on and so forth. This is how little regard the Australian government or state government, whichever state it might be, what little regard they have for Australians' level of intelligence. This is just absolutely ridiculous. We've got the Australian government importing wind turbines that are contaminated with asbestos. We've got Australia importing coloured sand being used in daycare centres across Australia, having to close down how many centres because it's contains asbestos. And we're concerned about people selling their fresh produce on the roadside. If the government wants to insult Australians' intelligence, they sure know how to do it. It's just madness.
Well, I'm starting to see a whole lot less intelligence in the Australian people anyway, to be honest with you. I just think that so many of us are being fooled as we are. Johnny.
Yeah, well, and add that to the iatrogenic harm that's going on in our health system. Every day people are being killed and maimed in hospitals, and nothing to see. Nothing to see here. It's just madness, and I include the vaccines in that, and it's just criminal stuff. But I've got to say, look, I think there's a real opportunity that we can really capture here, and I think as the independent media, we need to be on top of this if we can. Now, I'll make a couple of points. Some of the biggest, I think a lot of people have been really asleep during this, and because of where the media and the social media bans were when a lot of this information was being put out by us, a lot of that content has never been seen. Now, I'll give you an example. I'll give you a couple examples. The Vax bus on a current affair. Now, if that had that being seen some time ago, you compare that with it being released on Club Grubbery in the last fortnight and by the vaccine bus themselves. That's gone ballistic all over the place. People can't believe it, and that's due to the stories and what's going on. Another example is I put out one some time ago about the football show, and it was 12 months after it had occurred when they were talking about the harm to the footballers in Melbourne in the AFL programs, and that went mad as well. And people were going like it had just happened yesterday, and it was 12 months ago. And I did one a couple of days ago on Twitter, and this is why we have to keep doing this stuff. I put one out a couple of days ago on Twitter about the redacted 74 pages that came back from the TGA from an FOI in relation to the contamination of the Pfizer vials. There was just 74 pages of completely redacted information that was sent back to the applicant. It just would have sent the TGA's printers into meltdown printing this stuff out. It's just completely black, every page. And Sharon Cousins then ran some stats and numbers on the 10 little tiny bits of information that they did leave in, which were pertinent because we found out that those batches had in fact killed and injured a lot of people. But as a result of that going out in a tweet again yesterday or the day before, I got contacted by a Sunrise reporter who
Mm.
said this is outrageous.
Mm.
Now they hadn't seen it, so yeah, I think this is why this
Sunrise.
is.
They should call it Wake Up.
Yes, the
Sorry, John.
Christmas. Ironic that it happened in December, isn't it? With the Christmas coming up on Sunrise.
Well, that piece that Natalie Barr and Koshy did on how to handle non-vaccinated relatives at Christmas 3 years ago, that's resurfaced now, and that is getting huge commentary and sharing. One lady's put it back out again, and I mean, when you look at it, it makes you cringe. That was the worst
Cringe.
piece of television, I think, in global history. That was just such a disgusting thing. And I mean, Koshy's gone, but Natalie Barr is still there waxing lyrical about the rubbish she goes on with. But I want to go back, Robyn, to a couple of things you highlighted that you're looking at the moment as well. And that is, you mentioned the American government saying to African nations, if you've got any pathogens, don't give them to the WHO, give them to us. I mean, what could possibly go wrong, right? We're talking about a country that weaponized germs a long time ago through Operation Paperclip, where they used, scientists from Germany to come and develop these weapons. And let's not forget where gain of function started and who funded all that. There's a lot of people out there who are waving the Trump flag, waving the RFK flag as though there's no tomorrow. I think it's been healthy that they have rattled the cage as much as they have, but I'm starting to become a little bit skeptical. And a lot of people aren't going to like me for this, but I still get back to the old adage. It's not the cavalry that's going to save us. It's us and our communities that are going to save us. Where do you see this whole thing, and why does James Rogowski's comments on the American government wanting everybody else's pathogens concern you, Robyn?
I'll touch on James first. Look, we're essentially what we're talking about here, whether it's the World Health Organization or the US government, because I did pose the question to James, are we seeing the US trying to establish its own kind of World Health Organization? And essentially James said, no, look, America's been doing this for a long time. And I thought, of course, Robyn, of course they have. So, essentially what we're talking about is organized crime. There's no other way to describe this. And you just mentioned their gain of function, Hoodie. I mean, when we're talking about countries that go out, they purposely go out to look for pathogens that have a pandemic potential and bring them back into the lab and do what it is they do with them. I mean, isn't that gain of function? So it is a huge concern when we have, whether it's governments or three-letter agencies or two-letter agencies for that matter, going and searching for pandemic potential pathogens out in the environment. So it's always it's always wise to keep an eye on not only the World Health Organization, but also the UN and countries like America that are, essentially holding other countries to ransom so that they can get their hands on things like pathogens. It's nothing else than organized crime. But just talking about RFK Jr. and Maha, I have to say, and some people might not like this, I'm extremely disappointed. With everything that, and a lot of people throw things at me, and I report on things here and there that are great about what RFK Jr. has done and the FDA, so on and so forth. The fact of the matter is that they're still jabbing and stabbing children, pregnant women, people of middle age, the elderly. They're still doing it. So is Australia. So is every other Five Eye nation. That bothers me a lot. And the other thing is, I'm very careful to monitor, Bill Gates, Oracle. Let's not forget, in the very first few days of Donald Trump being in the White House in his inauguration, shortly after that, he had the leader of SoftBank, Sam Altman, Oracle, all the rest of them there, and saying that they'd invested $500 million, 500 million or 500 billion. Somebody can tell me in the comments, that escapes me right now, into AI and medicine and all these sorts of things, talking about cancer vaccines. Now, I have a conspiracy, allegedly. I do believe that they will eventually get rid of the traditional vaccines because, of course, we've seen, things like aluminium are not healthy in these vaccines. Andrew Wakefield is getting recognition after all these years. So I do believe they will get rid of the traditional vaccines and introduce a whole suite of newly formulated mRNA vaccines for the global population. As I said, that's my conspiracy, allegedly. But I am disappointed that these vaccines are still being used, and particularly on children and pregnant women.
Yeah, John, I think we posed a question to Senator Ron Johnson on one of the interviews we did with him about the progress RFK is making, and he was quite vocal about the fact that RFK is also copping so much pushback, and he's on tedious ground every day, and he is fighting a battle, and some of the stuff coming out of his mouth is really great. Some of the stuff has me scratching my head. I've got to admit, I'm with you in that, Robbie. But the one thing I'm glad about is that at least with Trump, who to me is like a golden Labrador, give him a biscuit and they're yours. You give Trump a good compliment and you won him over. Look at Albanese. I mean, if Albanese won Trump over with Kevin Rudd sitting at the same table, I mean, for goodness sake, the jury's out. But we can look forward to more information coming out. But the trouble is, do you guys think that Trump and RFK are being treated like we're being treated in Australia when we talk about these issues on the global stage? That the global, Macron and Starmer and even Albanese are just looking at them like conspiracy theorists and don't pay any attention to them because, our TGA and Atagi was saying, we're going by the gold standard of information that's coming out of the CDC rather than the TGA in America. And now that they're putting out information to the contrary, our mob is saying, "Oh, that's just rubbish. We don't pay any attention to them anymore." So, I mean, Barry, where do you see all this? I mean, a lot of people are putting faith in RFK.
Yeah. My training as a radio tech taught me to fix a problem, you've got to identify and then address the cause. And I look at what's happening in Australia and how Australians don't know about Maha. But when you understand what Kennedy's doing, he's taking on big food, big ag, and all the other bigs. And when you understand how our commercial media works, it's all paid for by advertising from big food, big ag, and all the rest of them. Big gambling, big banks, big retail. So they're not going to question anything that is that their advertisers are paying for. I did an interview with Dr. Gary Fettke early in 2022, He was an AMPS doctor. He talked, and he was right into diabetes and things, and he's a he's a orthopedic surgeon, and he got into trouble because if he taught people if they changed their diet, they wouldn't have to chop their feet off. Got into trouble for that. But he was talking there about talking about diabetes on commercial media and how people can change their diet to solve the problem. And the advertisers are ringing up 5 minutes later saying, "Get this bloke off." So that's what's created the problem. It's the commercial interests that control the media, community radio and tourist radio. They're not our advertisers, so we can have conversations that from a different perspective. And what you said, Hoodie, about the change in 2018, Alana McTiernan, the then WA Agriculture Minister, brought Charles Massey to Western Australia. Charles wrote the book Call of the Reed Warbler, A New Agriculture, a New Earth, about regenerative agriculture. And he stood up with Alana and he was talking to the Ag Department. And the Ag Departments, these departments have all been sort of aligned with corporate research because that's where all the research money comes from. And Charles said, well, the change has got to come from the bottom up. It simply can't come from the top down because the people at the top have fought to get there and like it the way it is. And we're all part of that bottom up movement. And, the things that are obvious to us are becoming increasingly obvious to other people. And I thought, we are approaching a Berlin Wall moment. I've thought that for a few years, but we're getting closer and closer to it. Watching you like talking to the Vax Bus people, a few years ago they're getting jeered and now they're getting cheered. So, I'm not quite sure what it'll look like this time. The Berlin Wall was clear cut. The wall came down. I'm not quite sure what this one will look like. But, it must be getting to the point where people realise we've been lied to and that they don't like it. And so something will change. And that's why community is so important. As I often say on my show, there's all this crap happening in the world that we can't do anything about. But at the end of the day, we can focus on our own community. So community radio, my program on community radio is what's hyper local stuff, what's local council stuff. And, I'm talking to this week, I'm going to be talking to Southwest Comedy Group, so we've got to focus on our own backyard to keep our community strong. And then we can resist whatever else might come at us. And at the end of the day, I guess in Donnybrook, we're fortunate. We're an agricultural community. I grew up in Donnybrook in the 60s and we've lost a lot of our small farmers, but the people are coming back with the interest in food. And this is what Joel Salatin talks about. The big thing in America now, and the same here, the average age of farmers is 60. In the next 15 years, a large part of the agricultural assets are going to change hands. If they fall in the hands of, as Joel says, Bill Gates, BlackRock, and China, we're going to be in trouble. We've got to find a way to get young, innovative, entrepreneurial people back into agriculture. Because at the end of the day, all this technology isn't worth 2 knobs of goat manure if you haven't got decent food.
Well, blow that. I had a cockroach burger the other day and it crapped all over a beef burger any day, Barry. I'm sorry to disagree with you. Johnny.
You're welcome, Hoodie.
Yeah,
Johnny.
well, look, I've got to say, look, I think at the end of the day, we've got to put some faith in some of these politicians. And I don't see too many good ones, but what I can say is that from the engagement that Hoodie and I have had with people like Senator Ron Johnson, I mean, they're the sort of people you would get in a trench with. There is absolutely no doubt about that. From my point of view, Aaron Siri, another example, that are all connected to these people that on occasions are throwing a signal out that's not quite right. But I think the politics at that end of town is probably very, very difficult to deal with. So I think we've just got to pray and hope that they are doing the right thing and they're doing it with the best of intentions. And I mean, it's comforting to me that these leaked memos come out from within. I mean, look at this thing we started at the start of the program. This Dr. Prasad, who's head of the FDA. I mean, his memo says after an internal review of safety reports, they found no fewer than 10 child deaths linked to the vaccine. He goes on to say, government official accuses government officials of being dishonest about safety and brands school and workplace vaccine rules as coercive. He claims regulators may have harmed more children than we saved, and even tells staff who disagree with him to resign. So, I mean, that sort of stuff coming out it really does give me some hope that there are some very good people in there, and I think in relation to people like Trump having to deal with that idiot of a buffoon of a prime minister that we sent over there, the two of them, him and that idiot Rutt. I mean, look, at the end of the day, I'm sure Trump got in the back office and said, "Who the bloody hell elected those grubs?" And then sending them over here. And even worse, I've got to pretend to be nice to these idiots when I normally lambast them. He must be just beside himself. That we could be so absolutely bloody stupid in this country to elect such a buffoon. I mean, this bloke couldn't run a chook raffle. And we've elected him as the Prime Minister. I mean, it's laughable.
Well, did we? 33% of the votes hardly being elected, is it? You know what I mean? It's like, and that's what's crazy about all of this. Now, talking about governments and elections and everything, let's talk about the elephant in the room. And that is we've seen a bunch of rallies taking place lately. The numbers are clearly falling away. There could be a number of reasons for that, rally fatigue, whatever it is, or it could be due to the war that's taking place between various people who organise the rallies, because they seem to be at each other's throats every other day. Has the season for rallies seen and done its day? Robyn, what are your thoughts?
No, I don't think so. You definitely, I would most definitely agree with you about, the different organisers having their own circles and disagreements, which of course isn't helpful. I mean, it's never helpful. We all know that. I think fortunately, unfortunately, I'm not quite sure which one. There will come another time, just like we had with the mandates, when people will go, well, this isn't okay. I've had enough. Now, whether or not the next time that happens results in a great change across Australia will be something to wait for and see. People have had many, many discussions about what happened after, the big rallies, and not just, in Canberra. Let's not forget that there were huge rallies across all the capital cities in Australia before the mandates kicked in. People have had many discussions about what was achieved from those huge rallies and the subsequent rallies. And I think there's a lot of positive things that were gained from those huge rallies. So, I do think ultimately it'll be something that happens. Could be the digital ID. Who knows what it will be to inspire the Australian people to come out en masse again, and more importantly, what will come from that. But I think the energy for rallies for the sake of having rallies is not there. That doesn't mean to say that the Australian spirit and the fight within us is gone. No, I think that is still alive and well. And I think when push comes to shove, we'll see that again.
Barry Green, it's always been tyranny eventually brought down by people power. That's been the course of history. Is that how you see it? Do you think the motor's just idling over in Australia at the moment, and when it needs to rev up that it will?
I think so. A quote that I like is Margaret Mead, anthropologist, said, "Never doubt the ability of groups of committed individuals working together to initiate change. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." We're all part of that, Hoodie. And then say I had something wise I was going to say then. Yeah, my community radio program on DBCR 10 to 12 on Wednesdays is called Business and Community Conversations. The bylines, it all starts with a conversation. A few weeks ago, I broadcast a segment of Dr. John Campbell's interview on the Jimmy Dore show, where they both described their vaccine injuries. And John Campbell's some that anybody who's I'm in awe of what he's achieved. Anyway, so I played this little piece about both describing their vaccine injuries, and because I sit in the community radio studio, it sort of feels like I'm talking to myself. But the next day, I got a call from a local bloke. He said he'd heard the interview. He said he'd had health problems which he just thought were coincidence, but having heard that, he now realises it's a jab, and he came in and talked about it the next week. And he specifically said, I come in because I'm not an anti-vaxxer, but this is what I now believe, and if by me coming out and talking about this, it gives somebody else the courage to say, well, maybe my problems are caused by the vaccine, because they've done such a powerful job to suggest, even if you've had umpteen vaccines and suggest the vaccine's the cause, you get labelled an anti-vaxxer. So it's been an incredibly clever operation. But as more and more people realise that and are prepared to talk about it, then the change will happen. I've never been a rally goer. I don't like crowds, but the conversations are so important, and that's what. And the yourself, Hoodie, I've watched you right back at the Qantas video, and I've watched you since. And earlier in the piece, you were saying, you're coming out and saying things. And they didn't come after you. And that's the thing. We can talk about it, whatever they try to control it, but we live in a democracy and we can talk about these things. So we need to.
Yeah, I think, John, you and I realised, along with Christian Mack and Alex Cooney, when we four sort of were thrust into the limelight in the early days, we were expecting all this pushback, and there was none there. It's like we ran across no man's land into the enemy trenches, and they were empty. It's all bluff and bluster, and we've been heavily shadow banned. There's no doubt about it. The algorithms have just destroyed so much good work that we've done. However, we all keep doing it. We keep doing it because we care. We're not doing it for money. I don't know whether you've been out and bought a flash new BMW lately, Robyn, have you?
My little Mazda, it's knocking 20 years, and it looks like I found it in the bush. I didn't. It just needs a paint job.
Well, there you go. Barry might have left it lying around in the bush somewhere for you to pick up years ago. But one more thing from me, and Johnny, you might add a little bit to this too, because you've got a bit of political nous and you talk to the same people I do. But if there's any state in Australia that's likely to secede from the Federation, which state would it be? Barry?
Oh, I don't know. Western Australia's tried a few times. I don't think it's likely to happen under the current government, but I don't know about that one. We'd be right without the rest of you, but there you go.
Have you heard any grumblings over there, Robyn, about this?
Well, no, not directly in reference to Western Australia, but I did see, I wish I could remember who it was now. Somebody put up a post on X. It was a news article from the Daily Mail when Dan Andrews was Premier, or just after I think it was when he was Premier, and he was noted for saying that if it was up to him, he would ban social media and get rid of all the states. Well, one of them's just happened, right? Banning social media. So who knows? Maybe, it's just going to be one big Australia, We're all in it together. Eh?
Oh, wouldn't we be better off if Dan Andrews was still running the show? How much better off would we be? Johnny, your thoughts about secession?
Well, I think it's pretty obvious, Hoodie. At the end of the day, the Premier of WA is very nervous about one Adrian McRae, and I think he would be the perfect president of Western Australia.
There you go. There's a Johnny Larder endorsement for Adrian McRae, and I'd be pretty hard for me not to agree with that, as I hold up GBTK, which stands for Gallipoli, Beersheba, Tobruk, Kokoda, which is the name of, you've got one too, mate. It's Adrian McRae's company. He's a real patriot. He's brave. He's up front. He actually does have leadership qualities and good ones. Anyway, look, we could go on for hours, guys. There are some interviews we really have a lot of fun with. We really enjoy, and it's really great touching bases with you. Can we do it again?
Love to.
Absolutely. Be fantastic.
Let's do it, and let's share views, and let's disagree or agree to disagree sometimes, but let's let everybody know that if anything happens on the social media platform that you watch us on, we're not going anywhere. We'll still be around somewhere. So if anything happens to any of these guys, we'll be letting you know where they are and how to get onto them, and we pray that they'll do the same with us, because now's not the time to give up. So I'd like to bring it to a close with a prayer, and then we'll close it off officially after that. Lord Father in heaven, we just thank you for the courage of the people on this screen, Father God. In particular, we talk about Robyn and Barry. Lord, they're doing their bit in their state, but their reach is going way beyond the borders of Western Australia. We thank you, Lord, that they are credible. We thank you that they bathe in the light of truth, and that they're committing their entire life to sharing that truth with as many people as they can. So empower them and give them strength as you do us all. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Well, great. Now, Robyn, courage is a cure. How often do you go to air, my love?
I have a Monday and a Friday show called Rise, which is where I help people turn information into ammunition. Because when we arm ourselves with information, that's when we can, improve our lives and also help other people learn or at least think about things. So that's Monday and Friday at 1 p.m. Melbourne time. And then Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. Melbourne time, I have a show called Relentless, where I interview guests from all around the world in whatever field they are relentless in. So that's on Wednesday nights at 8 o'clock. So, yeah, and I'm on all the social media platforms. So people can go along and search for it.
Well done. And a big shout out also to Michael Gray Griffith, who continues to pump out some great stuff and support a lot of people along the way. Well done, Michael. We love you. Barry Green, people can listen to you on the internet as well as their local community radio, and Donnybrook Barling Up. We love Donnybrook. We've got great friends who live there. I've been in your studio a couple of times. In the shed, and love the Australian flag on your back wall, mate. When can people listen to you?
So the program I do is called Business and Community Conversations. It's on between 10 and 12 West Australian time on Wednesdays. It's a lot of hyper-local stuff, but it's also other stuff that I think will be of interest to people. And the tourist radio, it's not streamed as such, but there's playlists pertaining to different towns. So if you say go to touristradio.com.au/Busselton, the top left there's an on-air button. You can click on that, and that's they're posted to SoundCloud. So that's a playlist of different local stories, and some of both community radio and tourist radio conversations are posted to the Radio WA podcast. And if I do Zoom interviews, I post the video to Rumble. As a radio man, I hate to say video gets more traction than straight audio, but the audio uses a lot less data, and I think some of these content I generate transcripts, and the transcripts are so important because they don't take much data. You can store them offline. We're creating history. When I was in Canberra recently at the Australian National University, I took the Light Australia into them and said, you should have this on your record. And I did a program on community radio last year called Business. No, it wasn't. It's called Small Town Reinvention Special, which was based on interviews I recorded at the Small Town Reinvention Conference in Pickering Brook last year. And so that program and the transcript has been lodged with the West Australian State Library. So, we are creating history. It's important we get these things. So when they do write history of this period in time, our content's there as well as the other side.
Well,
Absolutely.
you created history tonight, Barry. I thought we were doing a rerun of Bewitched there at one stage. You were popping in and out like Dr. Bombay.
Sorry about that.
Johnny Larder, where can people catch up with you and when do you broadcast?
I've got no idea when you tell me.
It's normally
You're late.
Monday.
You ring me up.
Can I just
Where
spruik the
are you,
light
Johnny?
before we go?
Oh, look, I was going to say, Robbie, I walked into a butcher shop in Kyogle the other day in northern New South Wales, and I saw a bunch of light newspapers on the bench, and it lifted my spirits. A lot of people are saying they love walking into a cafe to sit down and they see the light newspaper on a table. Spruik the light, Robbie. Talk about it.
Well, of course, the current issue that's out at the moment is issue 20, and that is with the golden age of Caligula on the cover. People go along to thelightaustralia.com and you can order papers there or read back issues on the website. And today we have sent off the files to the printers for issue 21. So if you want to pre-order that, again, go along to the lightaustralia.com and place your order there. So that should be in everybody's hands within the next week to 2 weeks. Looking forward to that one. It's the Christmas issue. The Christmas issue.
What I love about the light.
Is Natalie Barr
about,
featured in that?
Pardon?
Is Natalie Barr featured in that issue?
No, but I think E. Karen might make an appearance.
We should try and interview Natalie Barr.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Good luck.
That'd be interesting.
Good luck with that. All right.
The Light Australia newspaper's a bit like, the Christian thing of the fish. If you see a Light Australia at a place, you can go in, you can have a conversation with the people there.
Yeah, that's exactly right. True. You can. Well, great having you guys on. Have a great Christmas, and I hope you're taking a little bit of time for your families and friends. Don't forget Australia. What you did yesterday got you to today. Let's just keep doing it, and let's deal with each issue as it comes up. Don't get too stressed. Don't fret too much about it. Let's get behind each other, form community, and get on with it. Because, Johnny Larder, you've often been heard to say,
you just couldn't make this stuff up.
It's a stuff up, all right. God bless you all, and we'll be back with some more interviews. I think we've got about 7 or 8 interviews before the end of the year, before Christmas, and then we're going to have a little break for a couple of weeks. Catching up with Robyn on Courage is the Cure, Barry on Community Radio, and of course us on Club Grubbery, and Michael Gray-Griffith on Cafe Locked Out. You can't go wrong. God bless you all. Thanks for watching Club Grubbery, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.
Yeah.
Yeah.